Good day everyone and welcome back to Jack's Cosplay. Thank you so much for watching this video of mine, it really means the world to me. My name is Jax and today we are going to be doing something very different to my usual content. As some of you may know, I am a game designer and as of December 2020 I have completed my undergraduate degree in video game design and I'm currently doing my honors in video game design. So last year in my third year we were tasked with making any game that we wanted over the period of a couple of months. Now this was a group project and the game that we created was called C.H.I.P, Counter-Human Independence Protocol. In today's video I'm going to be showing you the game we made as well as some of the development and design process behind making this game. Don't forget to stay until the end of the video to see what the final game looked like. So in order to get this ball rolling, we had to assemble a team of passionate and talented artists and developers. And I just want to say that I am super thankful for the team that I was working with, and I am absolutely blown away by the quality of the work that they produced. And I will put links down below in the description to their different profiles and whatnot on various sites so that you can check out other work that they've done. So to start off, we had Eric Gardner, who was in charge of the 3D assets and art creation for our game. We had Ryan Funzale, who was in charge of all the sound design for our game. We had Brenton Budler and C.H.I.P, who were the duo team of developers behind the game. We had Matthew Brown, our project manager, and myself, Brendan Jackson, I was the game designer. So now that we had our crazy talented team assembled, we had to decide what kind of game we wanted to make. Now we all had an affinity for shooter games, and that is why we had gravitated towards each other, because we all wanted to make a shooter game. But with so many different kinds of shooter games out there, we had to decide, well, what kind of shooter game we wanted to make. So we all went off on our own and we did some brainstorming about what kind of shooter games we like, what kind of mechanics we like from various games, compiled some lists, and then we gathered for a meeting to decide what kind of game we were actually going to make. The first decision that we had to make was, were we going to make a single player or a multiplayer shooter game? And well, to put it simply, networking is hard, like super hard. The amount of work that we would have had to put into the game to make it network playable would have been as much work as we were putting into the base game itself. So we decided on making a single player game. We also took inspirations from games such as COD Zombies and Left 4 Dead, where we wanted the player to be playing against hordes and swarms of enemies, trying to survive for as long as possible until eventually they are overrun. Finally, the third major decision that we made that day was about the theme and setting of our game. We discussed everything from Western to space to Western space and everything in between. And we eventually settled on the idea of a post-apocalyptic machine uprising set in the future. And when we first pitched this idea towards our course lecturer, he just responded with, well, that's a lot of adjectives, which to be fair it was, but it led to something awesome. So we had our team, we had our idea, now we just had to start actually making this thing. And even though this process was an absolute ton of work, it was also an absolute load of fun at the same time. So our developers started working on various prototypes for the game, how the player would move, how the grappling hook and jetpack would work, how the player would switch weapons, how they would fire, things like that. Whilst our programmers were busy with that, our artists were hard at work creating assets for the game. Everything from 3D objects to audio files, some of which are even actual recordings of actual firearms that our sound designer fired himself and recorded. After quite a few weeks of work on the game, we were at a stage that we were happy to call our alpha version of the game. Now just bear in mind that what our game was at alpha was drastically different to the final version of the game. So what did our alpha version look like? Well, it was a fairly small map that would be procedurally generated on start using Perlin noise to create a map of various densities in terms of building heights. The map was being constructed using various chunks that had already been pre-constructed that could connect to each other, and each of these chunks contained different things such as buildings or cars or streets or road lamps and everything like that. The player could then move around the map using a starter pistol to defeat the single type of enemy and purchasing new weapons through the use of mystery crates. The player also had access to different types of equipment, such as EMPs, health beacons, and frag grenades. So that is pretty much what our alpha version looked like, and after presenting it to our lecturers and colleagues, we realized that there were some pretty major flaws in our game and its design. The first being the map being procedurally generated. Due to the map being random, we could not incorporate any way for the player to make use of crowd control mechanics such as funneling enemies. We also felt that a random map would not fully allow the player to make use of the fast vertical movement allowed to the player through the use of the jetpack. We also felt that having the guns given randomly to the player through a mystery box would not allow them to fully manage the resources of their currency, because they would be spending the same amounts of currency on a good gun as they would on a bad gun. So these were the major things that we decided to work on and improve for the beta version of our game. We opted for a map that would be pre-designed and laid out to ensure that the player would be able to fully utilize crowd control mechanics and use of the vertical movements. We also changed the way in which players get new weapons in the game to purchasing weapons from specific locations on the map, and each weapon had a fixed price depending on what weapon it was. From our beta to our final version, there were other smaller changes made along the way, but the majority of the time spent going from beta to final was spent on fixing bugs as well as playtesting and balancing the game. Things such as hit points, damage, cost, upgrades, all that sort of stuff to ensure that the game worked smoothly together. And after months of hard work, this is the final game that we created. All in all, it was an absolutely amazing experience working on this game, and thank you so much to my team for all the hours you put into this game and all the hard work to make this game what it was. It was truly awesome working with you guys. And there we have it. That is the game that I worked on for my final third year game design project. If you enjoyed this video, please consider hitting that like button, and the game is free to download from itch, so I will include a link down below in the description where you can go check out the game, download it, and play it if you want. If you enjoyed this type of content, please consider subscribing, and thank you so much for watching this video, and until next time, this has been Jack's Cosplay.